This is the CW Spiral, a podcast run by three survivors of the CW's calling in 2022. We're your hosts, Sabrina Reed,
Michael Patterson,
and Reed Gowdens,
bringing you history about the network and the WB, the latest news and in-depth Sporterville discussions of the best and messiest shows to ever grace the small screen. We couldn't resist actually talking about The Penguin because it is fantastic. At the time that we're recording this, what is it, Michael? 2 episodes have aired,
Yep, two
right?
episodes. Yep.
And deeply invested. Like, absolutely going to be here for the entire run. I told you this, I believe, or maybe I said it to, I might have said this to Cody. I said it to somebody. But anyone who will listen, I am standing Sophia.
Yeah.
Like, I
I
am
mean, like you've made a good
standing
choice.
her. Because it is, I'll just start from the beginning. The Penguin, if you've not watched the Batman movie, this show takes place right after that movie. It's set in time when Gotham is recovering from being underwater, thanks to the Riddler, and they already had a crime problem. I believe in like episode 2, maybe it's episode 1, they mentioned that crime has went up, what, 40 something percent?
hmm
So if we were already pretty high, I think if we were already pretty high in the percentage, it's even worse now. And also buildings are gone and people are dead. So that's the environment that Penguin starts in. So of course it's rife with the ability to become, or at least try to start your journey to be a kingpin.
Right, yeah, no, Gotham City's never been a pretty nice place to live, but it got even less nice after the events of what the Riddler did in the Batman. Um, I was very excited about the Penguin, but at the same time, I also didn't know what to expect from it because it's not usual when you launch a movie franchise to instantly fill the gap with a TV series spin-off right out of the gate, especially not with Batman. Like how many times we've had for Batman being around for so long, we haven't had that many Batman shows. But like all it took was a couple of minutes for me to be like, okay, we're in for a ride here. This is going to be good. And it absolutely was. I watched the first 2 episodes together, and it's just the feeling it creates, the vibes it gives. I mean, I guess we have to start with the obvious one here. Colin Farrell's performance. It's
Yes.
just incredible. He was one of my favorite aspects of the Batman, but also one of my favorite aspects of the Batman that didn't get enough focus. The Penguin was very much set up as being established in that world already, so we didn't need to see a lot of introduction. Once you saw him, you were like, what you get is what you say. This is as good as it gets. And he just kind of stayed at that level the whole time. 10, 15 minutes into the premiere, he's already up above that level. Because this show is designed to as a platform to showcase what he can give. Um, and we already there's more nuance in the way the character is written in those first 10 or 15 minutes of the Penguin because you learn so much more about Oswald Cobb, or Oz Cobb as the show likes to refer to him as, and his dreams and his desires, and he's used to being judged by other people for even when he expresses how he feels, and he doesn't like that, and it makes him feel less of himself. So that's one of the reasons that ultimately drives him to try to there's a power vacuum in Gotham at the moment. There is, because the Riddler's plans took out Falcone, and now people are scrambling for power. There's more crime, sure, but that's not the point. There's no kingpin running the crime, and so I feel like Oz kind of takes it upon himself to think. There's a moment in the premiere where he's like, "Oh God, what did I do?" And then that quickly turns into, "But what could I do?" And then he realizes that that could drive him to become this unlikely kingpin of Gotham. And if you've read Batman comics, you know that's what the Penguin is. But like, so there's a great story platform there, and Colin Farrell takes that, it runs with it, and even 2 episodes in, I don't think it's an overestimation to say this is going to be one of the best performances of his career. He's captivating, he's compelling, and he's so convincing. Everyone always says it's hard to believe that is Colin Farrell. And I mean, like, from the standard of acting, you know it's Colin Farrell, but at the same time, totally unrecognizable in all the right ways. He's just fantastic.
He disappears into the role.
Very much so.
Like, he really does. I know when we were doing our end of superhero TV, we were talking about how this show will most likely at least be nominated for Emmys.
Yeah.
Um, I I do not see how Colin Farrell will at least get a lead actor nomination for outstanding lead actor in a drama series. And then I don't know how Christina Milioti is being billed, but she needs to be nominated as well. There is something so unsettling about Oz and Sophia's dynamic.
Hmm.
It also speaks to the history that they have, which by episode 2, you guys, they still haven't really revealed. But it's the type of thing where you get crumbs of what might have went on back in the day. Like Sophia is carrying the burden of having lost her father. And then there's another great loss in the premiere that she has to contend with. But also, she is ostracized because she's the hangman. Like, was 7 women she's accused of having killed. And it's interesting, there seems to be an indication that there might be something more going on with that story. It's not a flat understanding of the past when it comes to her. There's something simmering under the surface that Oz also knows about because they have this exchange where she says, I understand that you had to go to my dad. And
Hmm.
then there's another exchange in episode 2 where he says that, well, I you don't owe me, I owe you. And I'm like, what happened? What happened in the past that where there's some type of simmering uh guilt, regarding them? Because I think that's a lot of what, besides the fact that, Oz just wants to be Kingpin and she's in the way, there's something there in their dynamic that they're slowly unraveling that I really enjoy. And it does have to do with the thing they're not telling us about that situation when it came to supposedly her killing a lot of people.
Hmm.
But like there's also like Sophia's unhinged. That's true. But it's like, is she unhinged because of the tragedy she suffered? Because she also lost her mom. That's like a very apparent. Or is she unhinged because she might have wrongfully been imprisoned at Arkham?
Right. There's a lot going on in the background. I feel like a lot of these shows you struggle under the gravity of what was said. I think the thing I love about The Penguin the most is that you feel the gravity of what's not being said. There is
Mhm.
so much going on in the background that you do not know yet. People are pulling the strings, but at the same time, people are telling other people what they want to hear instead of what's really going on, and other people won't reveal the truth either. So there's so much going on. Like it's no surprise that The Penguin is like a crime mafia drama. And when there's that many cooks in the kitchen, so to speak, of who's going to run Gotham, of course there's going to be whispers behind someone's back, plans behind someone's back, plans to take over, to remove other people from the board, and you get all of that within the first episode. Never mind the first two. Um, there's so many unique dynamics, and each one of them promises more than what we see in the first place. Of course, Oz and Sophia is definitely at the forefront of that show, but by the end of the second episode, when the two of them put a plan together to find out what's really going on here, of course, we know that Oz knows more because he's partially orchestrating. In fact, no, he is orchestrating the whole thing. He's just using other people to do it. So even that alliance can't be trusted. So they're keeping people on side for their own sake, but at the same time, they could also very easily portray those people. And we don't know. Sophia might be the one holding the cards all along. Like she is that clever, and she's also constantly put down and undermined by the people around her. As in, like, you don't need to worry about that, sweetie. And I'm like, well, no, actually, she's far more clever than you are. So maybe she should be worrying about it, and you shouldn't be. Um, so just yeah, there's so much going on. The dynamics are so complex. And it feels like a show like this could at least turn on a dime within 15 minutes of the next episode, for all you know. It's so edge of seat. It's so tense. There's that word again. It's very tense. The scene in the second episode where Oz needed to get rid of that person who had been taken, the Maroni inside man who had been taken by the Falcons, and he had to sneak in and out of the house quickly, while his friend Vic, who I do love, by the way, was on the outside trying to provide the perfect distraction for him. I mean, I can't fault it. Yeah, so just the everything that's going on in the show is so intricately plotted, and we're only two episodes in.
You brought up Vic, and I feel like we have to talk about
We do.
Oz and Vic's relationship. There's just, I love it because it's an example of what it's like to have camaraderie with a fellow have not. Right?
Hmm.
Like Vic, when we meet him in the premiere, and I think it's only been like a few days too by the time we get to episode 2. This is the he's a kid who's struggling, like we're and committing crime. But
Of
he's
course.
it's one, it's Gotham, and two, like you learn off the bat that he's having to fend for himself.
Hmm.
Like he is from a part of Gotham that is gone. That he And so when Oz like stops him from stealing his, they're trying to steal his rims or something. I don't remember what or trying to get the car. Uh, he starts stuttering, and you're like, oh, Oz is gonna see himself in him, and that's what happens. And they have a very cute dynamic. Like there's something about Oz that softens around Victor, but in a way that a mafia boss would, right? Like he's endeared to him, but he's not above reminding him that this life they're living is hard,
Hmm.
and I will get mad at you and do things that upset you if you do things that mess up my plan. And that's like really shown in episode 2. And I was like, Vic is not cut out for this life, but it's the life, it's the hand he's been dealt. So he's playing
Hmm.
it. And I think that's why I enjoy them so much because it makes you think about what a younger Oz might have been like, just trying to make it. Like obviously Victor's different. We're in a different time period for Gotham. He's of a different race. Like there are different things that like weave in and out of that story that where their experiences navigating this world wouldn't be similar, but they're similar enough that like when Oz tells him the story about how he became Pinchy's driver, and you're just hearing this mob story about how, yeah, I was working the bar and Pinchy came in and he saw something in me, and I he asked me to be his driver, couldn't drive a lick, but I accepted the position, right? And you can see Vic's endeared to stories like that. And the minute he's like, so where is he? And I was like, oh, he got bumped. And I was
Hmm.
like, well, Vic, you should have expected that.
Yep.
You're in mafia land. This is what they do. But there's just something so romanticized and heartfelt about the way Oz views the world he's decided to live in. Like,
Right.
it's just
Right.
really funny.
It's not like Oz himself would admit that he's lived a relatively hard life, but he talks about it with such fondness, such nostalgia, like he was just telling this harmless little story. And I think you're right, that's why he's endeared to Vic so much, because he sees himself in Vic, and it's like he can be to Vic what a lot of people in within the mafia world were to him and help give him his start. It's definitely like a twisted, tough love, because obviously, like you said, he's willing to teach him some hard lessons so that other people won't. It's not a healthy relationship by any stretch of the imagination, but there is absolutely something incredibly earnest about their scenes together, except for that one in episode 2, of course. Um, that makes you're invested. I believe this show only has 3 series regulars, and obviously Oz and Vic are 2 of them, and like. I feel like that's very much going to be the heart of the show going forward, which obviously none of the trailers suggest it was going to happen. We didn't know any of that much going into the show. Um, and sometimes dynamics can surprise you. And I think that's part of the show I'm enjoying the most so far because it shows you a different side to Oz. It shows you how Vic kind of mix of all of the strange world that he's found himself in, and that how one bad decision led to a near-death experience, which has now led to this unusual opportunity for him. And he's gotten thrown into the deep end and he's kind of doing all right with it. Um, so it's going to be interesting to see how that develops and how it goes on because like anything can happen in Gotham City.
Literally anything. I feel like
Yep.
from what we've seen so far, I have not expected most of the stuff that has happened on screen. I think what I love so much about this show is that it's very smart. Like the writing is smart and the characters are smart. Like it just Oz is so intelligent and able to think on his feet. And he just moves, right? He just moves at a clip. Like as soon as something that doesn't work out, he's already thinking of a new plan. And like it speaks to the way that he's had to live for years. Like we don't really have, as he tries to teach Vic, we don't really have time to be worried about something not working out.
Hmm.
because it's literally life or death. I could get popped. So the idea that like I'm not, twisting to whatever way I need to, he's so manipulative and so charming and also very vindictive.
Oh yeah,
Like the
that's how.
very, very, and like understandably so, but I laughed when there's a to try to say this so it's not really spoilery, but the Maronis are in this, you guys. And so he makes a plan with the Maronis to do something that will harm the Falcone's business. And in doing so, he puts one of the Falcone's minions in a position to die because that minion harmed him. And it's just the way that he goes up, he's like, we're cool, right? We're fine. It's like, oh, you put him in the car that they're gonna attack first, but we're cool. We're all right. Like he's just I was like, you turd. But I mean, it's not like this person didn't deserve it. But this is hilarious. And that guy is just like, yeah. He was very confused. Like, yeah, I guess, yeah, we're fine. It's like, you're not. You're not. He plotted your murder. He's
Right.
ready for you to die.
Yeah, as soon as that scene played out, I was like, "Oh, you're gonna pay." And he did. I know it's very Oz is kind of like that meme. Oz never forgets. He never forgets. If you've wronged him, he will get his own back. And that's the funny thing about the show. Nobody, nobody, nobody thinks he's capable of being this manipulative mastermind, and he's the one pulling the strings behind the scenes. That's the Penguin we know and love from the comics. And it's very intriguing seeing him at this point in time when like no one does see him as a threat. They see him as an annoyance. They see him as a convenience at best. Um, and they're like, oh no, he wouldn't be smart enough to pull that off. And he knows that. So he makes himself look slightly guilty at first so that then he can then prove himself to them. So then they'll be like, oh, you're innocent. You're not so bad after all. And he's still behind the scenes pulling all the strings. He thinks of everything. And I think that's what makes him such a compelling character because we didn't see that in the Batman. He looked like he was happy with where he was. Like he was relatively
Mhm.
high up the food chain, but again, he still didn't have that respect, and you get to see that now. Um, and now you're kind of seeing that he's going to earn those people's respect, even if he has to do it in a very bloody fashion. Like by when all is said and done, Oz Cobb will become the Penguin by the end of the series, and by the looks of how he's doing it, he will have earned that title. He will have earned the role of Gotham's new criminal kingpin.
He will have. But what's interesting is Sophia does somewhat have his number. She doesn't have
Mm,
all the digits, but she's
yeah,
very
yeah.
suspicious of him. Like it's not like he's unable to get one over on her, but it feels like he's got to work harder
Hmm.
than he has to work with anybody else. But her weakness is needing someone to care because
Yeah,
no one does. And I think that's what's endeared me to her. She just wants someone to believe in her, you know, and she doesn't have that. And so every time, she's entering a room, we're whispering, and we just keep talking about the people she killed. And I was like, well, it's Gotham. Murder happens. What is the difference between her and her father, to be honest? Because Carmine didn't get his own hands bloody. Is that what we're saying? Like, so it's okay to kill if you're the mob boss, but it's not okay if you're the daughter. Now, granted, depending on why she did it, that if she did it, that will probably shed some light. But I don't know. I just think that Sophia is misunderstood. She is a villain. I'm not getting that confused. But am I a Sophia apologist? Perhaps. Perhaps I am.
I can understand that. I mean, like the minute she came on screen, the vibe shifted. You sat up, you paid attention, and like that never changed whenever she was on screen. She practically is you kind of saw her through the Penguin or through Oz's point of view in the first episode, but in the second episode, she was an equal protagonist of that one, and you very much got to see why she is treated in that way and how it makes her feel. Um, and you're right, there is kind of like a double standard there because if Falcone wears business suits and sets up all these killings and does all these dirty dealings but doesn't actually do them himself, there's a reverence about him, there's a respect that he has. But because she's his daughter and the way she went about it, She doesn't have that. I'm certainly not justifying any of the actions that either one of them did, but it's because these are twisted people and mobsters and crime people in Gotham. It is interesting how they look at one as this man who should be respected when obviously he shouldn't, but show a complete lack of respect for the people who helped, who was around him and maybe even helped got him there. Like Oz doesn't have that level of respect. Sophia doesn't have that level of respect. And you can see that Oz slightly fears her, I think, because she is kind of like an equal to him. You're right, he can't get one over on him. And I think that's why this season, the episode two ending was so important because that was the moment that he technically did. Because when she had no one to turn to, she turned to him, which meant that she trusted him enough, even after what she'd done in the previous episode. She trusted him. There's never going to be any apologies or love lost between those two, but she trusted him enough to start an alliance with him when he's the one causing all the damage in the first place. So gotta give props to the Penguin for that. Again, nobody takes him seriously enough. The minute she started taking him seriously, it was too late because he'd already set the pieces in motion. His plan is in play now, and we'll have to see how long it takes her before she realizes what's going on.
I know, so masterful.
It
It was
is.
so well done. And I think uh, the way grief plays in this show too, like that's how he entraps her
Really,
because
yeah.
he's the only one who pays attention to her grief.
Hmm.
We're not going to say what the grief is over, but he's the only one who takes the time to speak to her and tell her a story because Oz loves a story, loves a
Oh.
story, but like to tell her a story to help connect with her grief so that she doesn't feel alone in it. And it is an oddball sort of story, beautiful, but also kind of speaks to the strangeness of their dynamic and the strangeness of Oz and of his mother. That it just works. I know we have to wrap this up in a moment, but I do love his mom.
Yeah.
And I do love the writing around her, but she knows everything. She's his confidant. And part of me wonders how much of that is because she's the one really pushing him to be a kingpin, and how much of that is because she is suffering from dementia
Hmm.
and he is trying to be as close to her as he possibly can before he loses her.
Yeah, it really is an interesting driving force because, like you saw in was it the first episode? He tries to keep things from her, and she's like, "Don't you be pulling that with me." So even though yes, it's very much portrayed that she does have dementia, at the same time, she's sharper than Oz thought she was, at least at that point in her life, because she still picks up on information. She still knows what's going on. She still demands to be treated with the truth and with the respect that she deserves. And then you see that she's actually not this feeble lady that the show portrayed her as in the beginning. She actually is the one driving him to be the best that he can be in his field. Of course, that's yes, in general, that generalization might be a very motherly thing to do, but this is the world of Gotham City and crime boss we're talking about, which is what something that a parent might usually recommend against out of fear for the safety of their own child, never mind the other people that could come into harm's way. But there's a power in this woman that's very much that Oz seems to respect. Of course, he needs to protect her, and that's why she's living outside of the main part of the city in one of the suburbs. But at the same time, there's just such a power that he quietly respects her. We know he loves her, but there's like a reverence there, a respect there, a slight maybe even a little bit of fear of how powerful she can be, and it's a very unique driving force. And again, it adds such another quality to the character of Oz because you didn't get all of that in the Batman. We don't knew very little about him. And you really learn who he is behind the scenes because you get to see all of behind the scenes in the show. It's such a complex, it's such a compelling, that's the word I was looking for. It's such a compelling storyline, and I genuinely can't wait to see where it goes next.
Yes, because they very much have the dynamic of, with the Flashes, we are the Flash. There's something about Oz and his mom that's we are the Penguin.
Yes,
Like
yes.
because she has this great line where she says, "If my son's a nothing, then what am I?"
Hmm.
And I was like, "Ooh, Mama, that's a terrible line, but it's great storytelling
Yeah,
because
right.
you're living vicariously through your son,
Hmm.
and
Right.
because you feel powerless, he needs to have power so that you have power."
Right. And that's that is such a unique take on the story. Um, and I think that's again, it adds such life to it. This is absolutely a rich, complex crime drama as it is. But there's a lot of there's heart in a lot of unexpected places. And I think that's one of them. It's like you said, it's a very unusual thing to say, but it's also extremely deep. And it's like, oh, that kind of got me. So no doubt it's going to resonate with Oz and make him more determined. He's in it now. He shouldn't have done any of this, but he's in it now. And by God, he is going to do exactly what it takes to get to the top of that empire.
And he's gonna do it. We're just watching
Oh
the
yeah.
climb and trying to see what exactly Sophia might do to impede him in some way. I'm just
Mhm.
really intrigued. Wait, this is a 8 episodes
Yep.
limited series? Well, limited series. We'll see. Because
Yeah.
they always build them that way, and they're like HBO renews The Penguin for season two. It's like I thought it was a mini series. I thought we were
Right.
done.
But at the same time, totally watching it.
Yeah, but it will have the extended. So we'll finish the season, and then Penguin will be in the Batman Part Two. So we will. It'll be interesting to see how they end season one this
Hmm.
season, so that it bleeds into the movie that's not coming out until 2026.
I know,
But
darn it. I'm glad we have this to fill the gap. It's going to be an interesting exercise to watch the Batman and then watch the Batman Part 2 as if you've never seen the Penguin and just see the shift in his personality, just see how he's portrayed. Because I know that it's going to be such a different character by the time we move from Part 1 to Part 2. They said the Penguin show was going to bridge the gap between the two movies. That's exactly what it's doing so far. So I can't wait to see what the finished product of the Penguin looks like.
yes, it's very exciting. Before we like sign off though, I'm gonna manifest something. This is a major spoiler for the Batman. So if you've never watched it, skip past this part.
Yep.
Um, Manifesting Selena Kyle because like she's Carmen Falcon's daughter. So like, and this is a whole show about the Falcone family. And no, she's not a Falcone, but doesn't matter. That's her, like, that's her dad. So, like, fingers crossed. Like,
Yes.
Sophia, you have a sibling, another sibling, you have a sister. And because I feel like that would be something that they could bring in that ties the movies together because I might riot if Selena Kyle isn't in the Batman part two.
Oh, yeah, that would be awful. We need more of her. It would be kind of ironic if she ended up being the last Falcone standing because the Penguin decimates the family. But it is, again, this is Gotham City. Anything can happen.
Yes, and he knows her, which is
Right.
just so like I don't know. I'm assuming he knows her by name, but I'm not sure. But they have a scene in the Batman,
Oh,
so
they do. They cross paths.
they cross paths. So I mean, this interconnected universe, well, it's so good. DCEU take notes because the what does Matt Reeves call this? The Batman crime saga?
Hmm.
He likes the
Yep.
full thing, so that's what I'm calling it, the
Yep.
Batman crime
I'm.
saga.
You won't get any better or a more captivating title than that, I tell you. And not that the Batman didn't show why it earned that title, but the Penguin earns it that title.
Mhm.
This is an epic crime saga, and you can absolutely see that. You see that in one episode. I'm 2 episodes in. We're definitely going to see it throughout the rest of it. Um, this is a universe that's as much about the crime as it is about the heroes, and that really works for it.
Yes, it does. So you guys, it airs Sundays at 9 p.m. on HBO. If you do not have HBO, it's simulcast on Max. So watch The Penguin. If you're watching our video after The Penguin has concluded its run, to binge watch the entire season. It is worth the watch.
You won't regret it.
But thank you guys for watching and listening. We're the CW Spiral. I'm Sabrina.
And I'm Michael.
Bye, y'all.